Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in philosophy we will be continuing with philosophy of language, and today we are conducting fourth lecture in the series. In today's lecture we will try and understand Brihathari's philosophy on language. To discuss this topic we have with us our subject expert Dr. Ajay Verma. Dr. Verma is Associate Professor in Center for Philosophy in School of Social Sciences, JNU. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir to our studios and request him to start the lecture. Welcome, Sir.
Thank you, Brit. So hello viewers. So as you're already aware, we have been talking about philosophy of language in this series, and in past three lectures we have spoken about what are the different areas, what are the different sub-themes that are studied within the purview of what we term as philosophy of language. In that we have already studied how there could be several ways of looking at language and the different problems from different point of views, different perspectives that are raised, that come to the fore regarding language. But in past couple of lectures, we have been trying to shift our attention, shift our focus, particularly towards philosophy of language in classical Indian philosophy. And in that context, we have already seen in brief how the issues are slightly different, but there are answers to several other questions that have been raised regarding problem of meaning, problem of understanding in language. So, as we are already aware, to recapitulate a little bit, let's look at what are the main issues regarding philosophy of language in Indian philosophy. So, as we are already aware, the main distinction between different kinds of philosophizations is done in classical Indian philosophy on the basis of whether you believe in the scriptural authority of the Vedas or not. And that being the case, we must notice that Vedas are basically nothing but written texts, but written accords of thoughts regarding the ultimate nature of reality, and so on, the substance of the universe, and so on. So, if we look at it, one way of looking at this distinction could be that this distinction basically hinges upon knowledge as it has been passed down to us through language, through texts. So, this fundamental distinction, which kind of demarcates a certain kind of boundary, which demarcates certain kind of thinking from some other kind of thinking, is mainly defined in terms of our view regarding language, our view regarding certain kind of texts. So, as we are already aware, the orthodox schools believe that Vedas are the records of highest intuitions, highest order intuitions into the nature of reality. And they describe, they give the best possible explanations, metaphysical explanation of the world around us, its metaphysical nature, and so on. And also, these are the best records of regarding what is the right course of action, what is our duty, how to live in the world, what kind of good life. What is good life, and how to lead that in this world. So, according to them, Vedas are final answers to these questions, and different schools basically take up different issues, and most of these issues are exegetical in nature, are hermeneutical in nature. So, say for example, for Mimamsakas, the main issue is how to interpret Vedas, because there are several kinds of musings. There are several kinds of there are several kinds of thoughts that have been imparted on different issues, but they fundamentally believe that the main question is regarding ethics, regarding what is the right course of action, and they try to so for them, the main function, I mean, the main job main philosophical job that they take upon themselves is that of trying to present the best exegesis of the Vedic texts. So if like Vedic text may be saying, so I mean, within that context, there are several issues that come to the fore. Say, for example, there could be certain portions in the Vedas which may not conform to certain other portions elsewhere in the Vedic corpus. So, since Vedic corpus is immense, it's a huge corpus of literature. So, there are certain things which are said in one portion and which don't seem to conform so well with certain other portions. So, certain hermeneutical difficulties, certain exegetical difficulties come to the fore, which which need to be resolved, and therefore certain exegetical issues lead to epistemological issues. So, say for example, if there is a conflict between two different portions within the Vedic text, according to Mimamsakas, it should be resolved. It could be resolved and should be resolved by interpolating the meaning. So, which is often done whenever even in the restoration of certain texts, when we find that certain portion of the text is missing. So certain interpolations are done. So this is something that's been presenting itself as a problem even for those philosophers who have been trying to restore certain historical texts, certain philosophical texts, and so on. So, in Mimamsaka, a lot of thought is given to this. A lot of their inquiry is focused around this. So, interpolation in Mimamsaka system counts as a valid source of knowledge. It is considered as one of the pramanas, one of the certified means of knowledge, one of the valid means of knowledge. So, if there are two passages, if there are two sentences in the Vedas which are in apparent conflict with each other, then we can interpolate. We should first of all conjecture some kind of sentence, some kind of knowledge that would bridge the gap. So we will have to sort of form certain belief, we'll have to form a certain conjecture, which should be able to bridge the gap between the two sentences that may be there in the Vedas. And the example, the example they offered is not from the Vedas. Basically, they give the example from the empirical, common empirical world. So, an example to demonstrate this could be that there may be a person, namely Devdatta, and you always find him, busy with something or the other. He never seems to be eating. And yet, he very clearly, conspicuously is gaining weight through the passage of time. So now these two facts are in conflict with each other, just like there could be two different sentences in Veda in conflict with each other. Now, how to resolve such issues? Say, for example, in our given example, which is a classical example to explain what is called arthapatti, another term for interpolation. So, how do we resolve this conflict in the example that is offered? We believe that since Devdatta is never seen eating, is never witnessed eating during the daytime, and yet this person is gaining weight day by day, therefore, he must be eating at a time when nobody is seeing him, namely, he must be eating during night time. So now this is the only way, this conjecture is the only way to, or this postulation, Arthapatti is also translated as postulation. So this postulation best explains how these two facts could be possible. So when there is an apparent conflict between two facts, then we choose the best way to explain this conflict, such that this conflict gets bridged up. Now, according to Mimamsakas, similarly, the Vedic text is something that cannot be challenged. So it's tantamount in a certain way to a fact. So if there are two sentences, then we cannot say that there could be something wrong with sentences. So those sentences are like two facts, just like sort of two facts in the given example. And since this conflict needs to be resolved, then a Mimamsaka would resort to Arthapatti, postulation. So he would come up with the best postulation in order to bridge the gap between the two. And this postulation, or this conjecture on Mimamsaka account is accorded the nature of valid cognition, is accorded the nature of knowledge per se. So according to them, once when this conjecture is actually required to bridge the gap, it's no more a conjecture. It should be treated at par with what actually is the case. So sometimes, what actually is the case, we form conjectures, and there's supposed to be a difference between the two, unless and until that conjecture is actually empirically verified. Now, according to Mimamsakas, that empirical verification is not really required, because in the case of Vedic texts, in any case, that is difficult to do. So this conjecture is straightaway accorded the status of actual fact, as if it were actually the case. So, but we're talking about this the Mimamsaka take on the issue to point out that Mimamsa philosophy, though it is all centered around the Vedic text, because in Mimamsa, especially Purva Mimamsa, so Purva Mimamsa philosophy is completely focused. I mean, starting point is the defense of the Vedic text, and they go into a kind of a philological inquiry, kind of a hermeneutical inquiry into the Vedic literature. So their inquiry mainly starts from there. It's centered around it, how to understand the Vedic text. And since their inquiry is regarding the nature of dharma, they need to explain. They need to come up with a theory regarding how a given text could lead to some kind of instilling of sense of duty in the person who's reading the text. So therefore, Mimamsakas are looking at the Vedic corpus. They are they are studying the Vedic corpus. They are inquiring into Vedic corpus from that point of view. But so they at the center of their philosophy also is the nature is the Vedic corpus, how to read Vedas, what is there in the Vedic text, and so on and so forth. But as opposed to that, the grammarian inquiry is somewhat different. A grammarian is not concerned so much about how about the exegetical issues. So grammarian is not concerned about the interpretation of Vedas, or the grammarian is not concerned about how to glean out a particular kind of meaning in the text, how to resolve conflicts if there are two different kinds of sentences in the text. So a grammarian is not taking upon himself exegetical issues, hermeneutical issues that invariably arise when we enter into an inquiry into the nature of dharma as it is expressed in the Vedas. So nor is the grammarian concerned with how a certain sense of duty is instilled in us through the. So he's not coming up with some kind of a metaphysical theory regarding, say for example, Mimamsakas would read even descriptive sentences at prescriptive sentences. One of their sub-schools, Prabhakaras, they believe that the entire corpus of Vedic literature only comprises of commands, of injunctions, of imperatives, of moral imperatives. So they are all answers to what should I do. They are all answers to the question, what is my duty? What is my duty? What should I do? What ought I to do? So if that were the case, then there cannot be any descriptive sentences, because when you ask what to do, the answer has to come only in the form of certain moral commands, certain moral imperatives, certain injunctions. So Prabhakar Mimamsakas look at the entire corpus of Vedic literature as if those were comprising a set of commands, a set of moral imperatives. But then the question arises, but there are descriptive sentences in the Vedas, undeniably there. There are sentences which talk about the state of affairs, so to speak, of a certain kind. But descriptive sentences, don't tell us what to do. So this is something called fact-value distinction in Western philosophy. So if we are talking about a certain fact, it doesn't provide us a clue to what I should do. Say, for example, somebody says the object over there is a chair. Now that doesn't tell me anything about my duty. It doesn't provide me any answer regarding what should I do in a given case. What ought I do? So the fact-value distinction is a very pronounced distinction in philosophical discussions, but that is challenged by the Mimamsakas, because for them the main nature of their inquiry is dharma jigyasa, dhatu dharma jigyasa, an inquiry into the nature of dharma. The dharma is about karma, what to do. So dharma is, dharma signifies the duty. The duty aspect, and that that has to focus on what is the right course of action. But descriptive sentences tell us nothing about the right course of action. So, therefore, Prabhakar Mimamsakas would translate even descriptive sentences as if they were telling us as if those sentences were suggesting some right ways of action to us. So the point here is that a grammarian is not looking into such exegetical issues. He's not even also entering into some kind of a moral inquiry, nor is a grammarian entering into the nature of, say for example, trying to understand the state of affairs in the world. So it's not even some kind of a factual inquiry. So it's not the case. Say, for example, in Nyaya philosophy, the main inquiry is to understand, to basically to schematize, the world in the best possible way. So when we come across the world, we have to form judgments about the world. So otherwise, it will be some kind of a disorganized world. Just like in science, we do. Say, for example, if we take the case of Darwin, what Darwin was doing was not only he was trying to give a theory of how changes occur, how species, certain animal species, human species evolve, and how sort of after evolution they have come to a particular point. He's also trying to sort of in biology, another concern is how to classify different organisms. So they are divided into different species, different families, and different phylum, and then so on and so forth. So classification, trying to systematize, trying to schematize what we see around us is an important part of any discipline, and this is also partly what Naiyayikas engage themselves with. So when we find so many things around us, whenever we land open our senses to the world, we find objects scattered all around us, and we need to form an understanding. Invariably, we form judgments about them, and when we form judgments about them, we may at times wrongly schematize things, wrongly categorize things, which would lead to, so to speak, not the right kind of cognition about the world. So our judgments could be incorrect. Our judgments about the world could be incorrect if the scheme of the scheme of classification, if the schematization process that we are following has certain gaps in it. So what Naiyayikas are doing is that they are trying to suggest best possible ways of categorizing the objects in the world. They are trying to give best schematization, best scheme of classifying things, of trying to systematize our understanding of the things, which actually which has to be invariably which has to be done in any discipline. So their inquiry is in a slightly different direction, and for them, I mean, they are still called sort of orthodox schools, because according to them, Vedic corpus is an accord written by God. So Vedas are the words of God, and since God is omniscient, since they are the words of God, and God cannot be wrong about what he's writing. Therefore, these words carry authority about themselves. So, but their nature of inquiry into a language is of a different kind. Similarly, another very important issue that is taken up by both Naiyayikas and Mimamsakas is whether the meaning of the word is primary or whether the sentence is primary. As a matter of fact, there is a theory which is called Ek-Vakyata Siddhant, which basically means that it's considered by Mimamsakas that the entire Veda, the entire Ved is basically one sentence. Basically, what it means to say is there is one unitary thought. It's a one systematized, systematized thought. So this entire thought is, is a manifestation of one unitary system. So this is called Ek-Vakyata. So there is the same sort of thought that is running into the entire Ved. That being the case, the sentence becomes the basic unit, and the words appearing in it have to be understood only in the light of the overall thought that is expressed in the Veda. So, since the Vedas are like single unit of a sentence, therefore words can be interpreted only within the light of that single thought that is running through the entire text. And also apart from that, when we use the words in our ordinary parlance, we do it more liberally. So if we take that words have a meaning apart from the sentential meaning also, that would mean that that would leave the possibility of interpolating our own ways of using the word into the textual meaning in the Vedas. So that would also be, some kind of a tantamount to the corruption of the actual meaning that is there in the Vedas. So, therefore, there are these issues as well. Also, there are metaphysical issues that are like how do if words also have a meaning. Prabhakaras are the only philosophers apart from Bhartari who believe that sentential meaning has primacy over the meaning of the word. But all the other schools believe that words have an independent meaning also, because for example, for Nyayikas, language is used even in loka vyavhar, in the ordinary behavior of the people, in ordinary parlance, and they take common sense also seriously. So they take lok vyavhar very seriously. So if something is done in lok vyavhar, the likelihood of its being right is very high. So they treat lok vyavhar as also one of the paradigm cases of what should be the case. So therefore, for them, the meaning of the word is also important, and then the other issues come up. Other metaphysical issues come up, like if words have a separate meaning, then how do these meanings come together and give rise to a sentential meaning over and above word meanings? So there are several other kind of problems that are taken up. So, say for example, since in a sentence we utter the word, different words one after the other, and by the time one uses the last word in the sentence, all the other words have faded away. So in a certain way, all the other words have ceased to exist, and the actual understanding of regarding the meaning of a sentence arises only after the last word in the sentence has been uttered. And that being the case, one has to explain, since at the time of the understanding the other words have faded out of existence, then it needs to be explained how the actual understanding that has arisen after the entire sentence has been uttered, how could it be related to the other words which have already faded into past by the time the understanding of the sentence has arisen. So there are these other kinds of metaphysical issues that also come to the fore when we are talking about language. But the point that we are discussing here is that Bhartrhari participates in these issues only partially. That's not his primary concern, and since after talking about this, we are also ready to talk about the different sections of the book that we are going to study today, namely Vakyapadya. Vakyapadya, the magnum opus composed by Bhartrhari, is divided basically into three parts, three kandas. The first part is called Brahmakand, because that deals with mainly the metaphysical issues regarding language, the substance of language, and so on and so forth. The second part is related with the nature of sentences and the nature of word, how words come together into whether the words are primary, what kind of reality words have, is it a conventional reality, or they have a reality of a certain of a different order altogether. And then in the third in the third part, again some other kind of metaphysical issues are taken up, like the nature of universals and so on and so forth. So we will continue our discussion on Bhartrhari's Vakyapadya after a short break. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers. So we had just started to discuss the text Vakyapadya, and I was trying to tell you how this magnum opus, this huge work that is composed by Bhartari, is divided into three parts. First part is called Brahmakand, where there are some very sort of good theories regarding the nature of language principle as such, and certain other kind of metaphysical issues. Because earlier there was this way of analyzing the reality about the universe in terms of its substance. So we will talk about this in a short while. So basically, the issues that are taken up there is the nature of the language principle, the substance of the language, and so on and so forth. In the second chapter, the issues that are taken up are the nature of sentence, nature of padas, meaning words, and how certain the two combine, which has primacy over the other, and so on and so forth. And the third section again deals with certain metaphysical issues like nature of universals, and how these universals are manifested, and so on and so forth. And what should be noted here is that in the earliest times, Vakyapadya was the term that was used only for the second part, only for the second kand of this work. But since that was that was one of the main discussions which was very prominent in philosophical circles, that name eventually came to be used as a title for the entire work. So the entire 3 volumes came to be named as Vakyapadya. Even though there is not much discussion about, because the term Vakyapadya means is composed of 2 sentences, it is 2 words, Vakya and Pad. So this could translate also this could be translated as on words and sentences, on padas and sentences. So, but there is not much discussion around the nature of words and sentences in the first part and the third part. The main discussion around this is in the second part. So, before we start having a look on the first part of this text, also let's remind ourselves that if there is so much of emphasis upon and since the grammarian is concerned mainly with only the Vedic text, and since there is so much of emphasis upon Vedic Vedic texts in any case in classical Indian philosophy, so much so that the entire division regarding Nastikas and Astikas is centered around one's belief in Vedas or not. So that being the case, one could also ask, could there be non-verbal understanding of things? Could there be extra-linguistic understanding of things? And that question becomes important, because if there could be some extra-linguistic understanding of things, or another way of putting it could be, if we could have, because language after all is our sort of passage towards reality. So it only in a certain sense has an instrumental value. So there is some reality out there, and when we try to form an understanding about this, we require language. And when we have an understanding and we want to impart it to others, then also we require language. So language is basically required to make sense of things and to be able to express that sense that we make of it. But at the same time, one could say, well, don't we understand at times, even if no language is used? Say, which would mean, could there be any non-verbal ways of understanding? Now the problem is, if you say yes to it, then certain the way language and the Vedas are supposed to be sacrosanct, that sacrosanct nature of that text would be challenged. So therefore, grammarian or for that matter even Mimamsakas, they believe that there is Mimamsakas have slightly complex take on this issue, so they don't completely discard non-verbal understanding. But since a grammarian is dealing mainly with the issue of language, therefore, if you and then since sort of they are dealing with highest sort of order inquiry into the Vedic text, which they hold to be supreme, therefore they would not be in favor of admitting the possibility of any non-verbal understanding of things. Now, the term for that in Sanskrit is nirvikalpaka. So, in cognition, whenever we try to cognize something, there can never be a non-verbal cognition of something. There can never be a non-verbal comprehension of something. So whenever we make sense of anything, whenever we understand something to be the case, then language is invariably involved, even in the understanding of it. We generally would tend to believe that we require language only when we want to express our understanding of things. But even more important than that, grammarian would point out that not only do you require a language when you want to express what you've understood to be the case, but you require language even to understand what is the case, even to form judgment about what seems to you to be the case. And therefore, in that sense, there cannot be any extra linguistic way of knowing. There can never be any extra linguistic reality, and also along with that, there can never be any extra linguistic way of knowing. And this, of course, is not only challenged by the heterodox schools, but even Naiyayikas have the view that our cognitions, our perceptions, could not only be conceptual, meaning savikalpaka. So whenever we think, whenever we try to make sense of something, we do require concepts, but they leave the possibility open for some kind of non-conceptual understanding, also non-verbal understanding as well. So, which is called nirvikalpaka stage, in perception. So, according to them, perception, cognition, immediate cognition could be of both the kinds. It could be non-verbal as well as verbal. So, an example of it would be that at times we have apprehension of things, but we don't associate it with words. Because what we are cognizing basically depends on where our manas, where our mind is focused, and Naiyayikas have the same kind of metaphysics, and we don't want to go into too much of detail about that. But their idea is that at times we may be cognizing things, but we may not be associating them with words. So, say for example, if you go to a particular place, you would be crossing through several streets, several places. You'll be, walking by. Your eyes, there would be several trees, maybe that would come into contact. That would fall into your visual field. If they're in your visual field, that would mean your eyes register, or at least are in touch with all that sensory input. But we don't put that sensory input into a perspective. So in a certain way, even though that sensory input is received, but it does not become a part of our cognition. Another, this is just one example, but another sort of example could be that at times when we may be rushing towards a particular place, and sort of say, for example, if you are late for your class, you go running for the class, and then by the time you reach your classroom, you may be tired, and you enter the class and sit sort of trying to sort of get your energy back, and all that while, even though you are surrounded by all your classmates, there may be something written on the blackboard, but it'll take you time to register all that and put it into a perspective, and then only it'll become a proper kind of a conceptual understanding. So Naiyayikas find examples from lok vyavhar, from common experience, and suggest to us that there could be both the ways of understanding. There could be both these kinds of apprehensions. Apprehensions could be verbal as well as non-verbal. But for grammarian, there cannot be any non-verbal comprehensions. Because if there could be non-verbal comprehensions, then the primacy of language is lost. That would mean language is not the only way. That would also mean, certain importance that the study of language would otherwise have is lost if you admit that there could be some extra-linguistic, non-verbal ways of cognizing things. Therefore, for Bhartrhari, all comprehension, all apprehension of things, all knowledge of things is only in terms of the words and nothing else. So all knowledge is verbal in nature, and there is nothing that we could call non-verbal apprehension, and this idea is challenged by Naiyayikas, first of all by coming up with this idea of nirvikalpa perception, but Buddhists take this idea of nirvikalpa perception to a different level altogether. According to them, only nirvikalpika perception is the paradigm case of knowledge. So according to them, knowledge per se, the actual knowledge, the philosophical knowledge, what they call paramarthik satya, the reality which is philosophically important to us, the most important part of reality, so to speak, paramarthik, falls into the category of non-verbal, non-conceptualized. So not only they look at the possibility of the non-conceptualized reality, a non-conceptualized knowledge, a non-conceptualized way of knowing things, non-conceptualized apprehension of things, but they also, apart from that, emphasize the fact that this domain only forms the this is the only domain which is good enough to be defined, to be put under the ambit of knowledge, and all conceptualized knowledge that that happens, that kind of takes place at the level of concepts, that falls into a different category according to the Buddhists, which is called inference. So the reality that that is grasped by non-verbal ways of knowing is called swalakshana, meaning unique particulars. Apprehending reality in its unique particular aspect, such that you're not connecting, you're not sort of connecting any two things and trying to make an overall sense of things. You're seeing things in their unique particularity. The moment you see them, you view them in some kind of cause and effect chain, as a part of certain cause and effect chain, or as a part of certain conceptual scheme, as a part of a certain schema of understanding, the moment you do that, you are you are acquiring a different kind, qualitatively different kind of knowledge, which is called inference, or which is called anumana, and the object of that knowledge is also different, because that refers to the universal aspect, not the particular aspect, but the universal aspect of that particular object, which is called samanya lakshana. So therefore, for Buddhists, knowledge could not only be of non-conceptual, non-verbal kind and verbal kind, but more than that, non-verbal knowledge is the actual knowledge per se, of the highest order knowledge. So therefore, there's a lot of, these are two complete opposites: the Buddhist conception of knowledge and the Buddhist conception of language, and grammarian conception of knowledge are like two different poles. For Buddhists, language is a mere instrument used for practical purposes. So, as if we were to define these different takes on these different ways of studying language, then Buddhists probably would fall into into the pragmatic study. Whereas Bhartari, would probably would be somewhere along the line of innatism. So these are two different, and we don't want to talk in detail about their Buddhist idea of apohovad, where they say that words have no direct connection with the world. Words are capable of getting some kind of a meaning, or acquiring some kind of a meaning about themselves, merely on the basis of internal differentiation with other world. So language is more of a system of internal differentiations, where there is no center, where there is so to speak no transcendental signifier. Where there is no center, no essence, lying anywhere within the ambit of language. Whereas for Bhartari, the main inquiry is to give a theory of some kind of a transcendental signifier. What is that transcendental something that imparts meaning to the text? So for them, words are not only are instruments of expressions, instruments of apprehension of reality, but they are understanding themselves. So they wouldn't talk about this bifurcation, that through words you understand something. For them, language is representative of understanding. It encodes the very understanding of things. So it doesn't work only at the instrumental level. So for them, entire universe is permeated with word, is permeated with language. So the entire world for them is of the nature of language. Just like for a mathematician, the entire world is of the nature of mathematics. So a person like Pythagoras would see the entire universe in terms of numbers, their shapes, how these shapes correlate, numbers, how they correlate with each other, what are the different different interrelationships that come to the fore, what are and after and thereby what are the different laws, theorems, formulae that come to the fore. So similarly for a grammarian, the entire world is of the nature of language. Language permeates the world, and therefore there is some kind of an essential unity between the two, and the two could not be considered as two separate realms of study. So when you're studying language, in a certain way, you are studying the world, because world is of the nature of language. So word is the world, in a certain sense. So now, having understood this, we could try and read some of the passages from the text Vakyapadya, from its Pratham Kand, from its first volume. The very first karika, the very first aphorism of the text goes something like this. Bhartari says, The Brahman, who is without beginning or end, whose very essence is the word, who is the cause of the manifested phonemes, who appears as the objects from whom the creation of the world proceeds. So, again, in this very first karika, in this opening stanza of the work, Bhartari wants to look at, he's not sort of talking about here, word here does not mean the pada, the word in a sentence. The word here means word principle, the principle of language, the underlying principle behind language. The shabda in that sense. So just like earlier, there was, one of the questions that was raised about the world was, what is its ultimate substance? In Greece, the word for it, in ancient Greece, the word for it was archai. What is the ultimate stuff, ultimate substance that, that universe is composed of? Similarly, in Indian philosophy also, Nastya Sukta, talk about how could have world begin, what is the substance. Similarly, there are two theories, about it, Satkaryavad, Asatkaryavad, whether things are new creation or it's the same old substance which keeps on, taking new forms, new modifications, and so on and so forth. So in this aphorism, Bhartari is also looking for the ultimate substance of language. There has to be some kind of ultimate substance which is at the center of language, which just like in Upanishads, one of the examples that we come across is that of what we call mritti. Mritti means clay. In Hindi, what something that is called mitti. So mitti is the modified word after mritti, which is the Sanskrit term for it. So just like clay assumes different shapes and forms depending on the potter, what potter wants to make out of them, but ultimate stuff behind all these modifications is the same clay. Another example that is offered is that of gold. So there could be different ornaments, that one could make of gold, but then all of them could be melted and new something could be created. So the underlying substance behind all those different kind of ornaments is the same substance, namely gold or mritti. Similarly, Bhartari is also looking for some kind of ultimate substance like that, and he says that Brahman is that is that origin of things. Brahman. So the ultimate nature of reality is of the nature of Brahman. Brahman, in that way, is the transcendental signifier and signified both. Brahman is the origin where the language sort of comes, sort of evolves in on one side, and the entire world evolves on the other side. So the Brahman, which is anadi nidhanam, which is anadi, beginningless, and without an end, anadi and anadi nidhanam. And whose very essence is the word. That Brahman, his essence, the essence of that Brahman, of that ultimate reality, is Shabda, is word. The essence of that reality is language. And this word, this word principle, this Brahman, Shabda Brahman as it's called, is on the one hand the cause of phonemes, cause of all these words and sounds that we make, meaningful sounds that we make. So on the one hand, Brahman is the source of all these meaningful units in language, but also he is also the source of all the different objects in the world. And therefore, this is how the creation of the world proceeds. So in this sense, there is, at the top, one origin of everything, namely Brahman. On the one hand, the physical world manifests itself. On the other, the language, gets manifested from the same source. And since the physical world and the language both ultimately have the same source, and both ultimately, converge into the same source. That is the point of their emergence and emergence, both emergence and emergence. Therefore, words and world are ultimately not two. The world and the world are one and the same thing. Therefore, word permeates the world. The world is of the nature of word. Therefore, when we are talking about word, we are not talking about word as the via media of making sense of the world, but word has, is accorded a much higher status. Language is accorded a much higher status in Bhartrhari's scheme of thing, where world is itself of the nature of the world, of the word, and ultimately there is no division between the two. So when you know the word, when you know the actual nature of the word, then you know the actual reality of the world. Therefore, by studying language, by inquiring into the nature of language, by inquiring into the nature of word, grammarian claims to be studying also the nature of the world, because the two are in a certain way interpermeated, are infused into each other. Such that they cannot be seen in isolation from each other. Then after this it says, who has been taught as the one appearing as many due to multiplicity of his powers, who though not different from his powers seems to be so. So this division between the source and what is manifested is only apparent. So the Bhartrhari's philosophy is also called what we call Shabd Advait. So in a certain way, it's a non-dualism, it's a non-dualist philosophy in the realm of language, from the point of view of language. So he applies Advait philosophy in the realm of language. Then after this he says, depending on whose time power, Kal Shakti, to which though one differentiation is attributed, the six transformations, birth, etc., become the cause of all variety in being. Now, even though, since Shabd Brahman is Anadi Nidhanam, it is without a beginning and an end, but since we are living in a world which is defined by change due to what Bhartrhari calls Kal Shakti, since we live in a world which is operated, which is influenced by Kal Shakti, the divisions of time, therefore, this Shabda principle, which is non-dual, manifests itself as if it had parts because of the Kal Shakti. And we attribute these differences as if these differentiations actually belonged to Shabd Brahman. So these differentiations which seem to be there when I speak, when I'm speaking right now, I'm speaking word by word. So my speech is coming, phonemes are being uttered one after the other. But according to Bhartrhari, these differentiations are only apparent, but the thought in my mind is single unit. And only because of Kal Shakti, it appears as differentiated, but ultimately it is not differentiated, but of the nature of one. So just as it might sound like too metaphysical for you, but another way of looking at it could be that at times some of the big scientific discoveries come initially as some kind of unitary intuitions, and demonstrations, mathematical proofs are given later on. So friends, today this is all that we have time for. We'll continue reading this text. We'll read few more karikas from this text in our later discussions. Thank you.
Dear friends, on that note, we would like to thank Dr. Verma for coming to our show and delivering this wonderful lecture. And thank you, dear friends, for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.